What you're about to hear actually happened. A 7-month pregnant woman, a millionaire husband, a shocking discovery that would change everything. But this isn't just another cheating scandal. This is the story of a conspiracy so twisted, so calculated, that it was designed to steal not just money, not just dignity, but an unborn child. Rebecca Hamilton thought she knew her husband. She thought she understood her life. She had no idea that for months a plan had been in motion, a plan to take everything from her baby, her sanity, her very identity. What saved her was the most unlikely thing imaginable, a stranger's garden live stream, 43 viewers who became witnesses, and one neighbor who refused to look the other way. Over the next 90 minutes, you'll hear exactly how a routine evening became a viral sensation that exposed a criminal conspiracy. You'll witness in real time as lies unravel, masks fall away, and the truth becomes impossible to deny. This story contains emotional content about domestic abuse and financial manipulation, but it also contains something else: hope, strength, and proof that sometimes the most ordinary people can become heroes when it matters most. You'll never look at your neighbors the same way again. Let's begin. The wine glass shattered against the marble floor, sharp fragments scattered across the pristine white stone like broken promises. Rebecca Hamilton stood frozen in her foyer, 7 months pregnant, staring at the pieces of crystal that had slipped from her trembling fingers. She wasn't supposed to be home. The business trip to Portland had been canceled when her morning sickness flared up again. But she hadn't called Jonathan. She'd wanted to surprise him with dinner from his favorite restaurant. The surprise was definitely on her. Through the partially open French doors to the living room, she could see them. Jonathan, her husband of 8 years, with Madison Brooks pressed against their white leather couch. The same couch where Rebecca had fallen asleep reading pregnancy books just last night. Madison's blonde hair spilled over the armrest. Her yoga pants were pushed down around her ankles. Jonathan's expensive suit jacket lay crumpled on the Persian rug that Rebecca had spent months choosing. Jonathan, her voice cut through their passion like a blade. He jerked away from Madison, his face cycling through shock, guilt, then settling into that cold calculation she'd been seeing more often lately. "Rebecca, you're supposed to be in Portland?" Clearly. She stepped into the room, her hand moving instinctively to protect her rounded belly. The baby kicked hard, as if sensing the sudden tension crackling through the air. "How long?" Madison adjusted her yoga pants with practiced nonchalance. She didn't look surprised to see Rebecca. She looked annoyed at the interruption. Her lips were still swollen from Jonathan's kisses. "Becca, we need to talk about this rationally," Jonathan said, straightening his shirt. "How long?" Each word dropped like ice into the heated air. 6 months, Madison answered when Jonathan hesitated. Her voice carried a slight southern accent, refined and deliberate. "Since your second trimester started and you became unavailable." The casual cruelty hit Rebecca like a physical blow. 6 months, half her pregnancy, while she was growing their child, dealing with complications, throwing up every morning, he was here with this woman. "Get out!" Rebecca's voice shook despite her effort to stay calm. "Both of you, get out of my house!" Jonathan laughed, the sound sharp and dismissive. "Your house? I think you're confused about who pays the mortgage here, sweetheart." The familiar pattern began immediately, her emotions invalidated, her reality questioned, her ownership of anything denied. But something felt different this time. The baby kicked again, stronger, and Rebecca felt a fierce protectiveness she'd never experienced before. "I'm calling my lawyer," she said. "With what money?" Jonathan stepped closer, his voice dropping to that tone she knew meant danger was coming. "You have nothing, Rebecca. No coup, no income, no family money. You are completely dependent on me, and you know it." Madison watched this exchange with barely concealed satisfaction. She was younger than Rebecca by 4 years, unmarked by pregnancy, everything Rebecca used to be before marriage changed her into someone she barely recognized. "The baby needs stability," Rebecca tried. "The baby will have everything it needs," Jonathan interrupted smoothly, "as long as you remember your place in this family." Rebecca backed toward the doorway, her heart pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. This wasn't just infidelity. This felt like a calculated dismantling of her entire world, and she'd been too tired, too focused on the pregnancy complications, to see it happening. I need some air. She grabbed her keys from the hall table with shaking fingers. Where are you going? Jonathan demanded, his mask slipping slightly. For a drive. She didn't look back at either of them. Don't follow me. Rebecca, don't you dare walk out on me, he called after her. But she was already closing the front door behind her, leaving the crystal fragments scattered across the floor like evidence of something irreparably broken. Outside, the evening air felt cool against her flushed cheeks. She climbed into her silver sedan, hands still trembling as she started the engine. Through the front window, she could see Jonathan and Madison silhouetted in the living room, already deep in conversation. About her, she realized. They were talking about her. As she pulled out of the driveway, she noticed Madison's white BMW was still parked beside Jonathan's Mercedes. They weren't done with whatever they had been planning, and she had a terrible, sinking feeling that it was about much more than just an affair. The radio played softly as she drove aimlessly through their expensive neighborhood. Classical music that Jonathan had insisted she learn to appreciate. Everything in their life was something Jonathan had chosen. Something Jonathan had decided was appropriate for his wife. When had she stopped having opinions of her own? 3 times she pulled out her phone to call someone. 3 times she put it back down. Who would she call? Her sister Emma was 3,000 miles away in Seattle. Her college roommate had stopped returning calls 2 years ago after Jonathan made it clear she wasn't welcome at their dinner parties. Her work friends had faded away when she quit her marketing job to become the perfect wife. She was completely alone, 7 months pregnant, with nowhere to go and no one to turn to. The baby kicked again, and she spoke to her rounded belly. It's okay, little one. Mommy's going to figure this out. But as the sun set behind the perfectly manicured trees lining their street, Rebecca Hamilton had no idea how prophetic those words would prove to be. Rebecca sat in her car outside the Whole Foods parking lot, engine running, unable to make herself move. Her hands shook on the steering wheel as the last hour replayed in her mind like a nightmare she couldn't wake up from. 6 months. 6 months of lies. Her phone buzzed constantly with texts from Jonathan. She read them with growing nausea. Come home, we need to discuss this like adults. You're being dramatic. Think of the baby's stress levels. Madison means nothing, this is just physical. Each message made her feel sicker. She thought of all the times he'd been working late during her pregnancy. The mysterious charges on credit cards she wasn't allowed to see anymore. The way he'd become more controlling as her belly grew larger and her independence grew smaller. The grocery store looked impossibly normal. People pushing carts, buying dinner ingredients, living their regular Wednesday evening lives. Rebecca waddled through the automatic doors, picking up items she didn't need, avoiding her reflection in the freezer doors. In the prenatal vitamin aisle, she stopped. A young pregnant woman, maybe 25, examined different brands with her partner. He rubbed her back absently while reading labels, his other hand resting protectively on her small bump. These ones have more folic acid, he said softly. Whatever you think is best, honey. She leaned into him, trusting and secure. Rebecca's throat closed up watching them. She remembered being that young, that certain of love. When had Jonathan stopped, touching her belly with wonder? When had his hands become tools of control instead of comfort? Her phone rang. Jonathan. Where are you? Shopping. Her voice sounded steadier than she felt. For what? We have everything we need at home. Such a simple question, such a loaded answer. They had everything materially. The house, the cars, the designer nursery Jonathan had insisted on, but never helped plan. But they had nothing that actually mattered. I needed to think. Well, think faster. Madison left, and we need to set some ground rules about this situation. Ground rules. As if she were a child who had misbehaved instead of a wife who discovered her husband's affair. I'm not ready to come home yet. Rebecca. His voice dropped to that tone that used to make her comply immediately, the tone that suggested consequences for disobedience. You're being irrational. Pregnancy hormones can cause women to imagine things that aren't really happening. Well, she hung up on him. The young couple had moved to the baby food aisle, still connected, still gentle with each other. Rebecca watched them until her vision blurred with tears she refused to let fall in public. In the parking lot, she finally called her sister Emma in Seattle. Becca, What's wrong? You sound terrible. The concern in Emma's voice broke something loose inside her chest. Jonathan's having an affair. Silence stretched across 3,000 miles. Then, oh, honey, I'm so sorry, but honestly, I'm not surprised. The admission hit like cold water. What do you mean? The way he talks to you when we video chat, how he controls everything about your life. Remember at Christmas when you wanted to stay an extra day with me, and he said no because you'd already spent enough time away from your responsibilities? Rebecca had forgotten about that. She'd been so focused on keeping the peace, on being the perfect wife, that she'd normalized 1,000 small cruelties. Come to Seattle, Emma continued, tonight. Bring nothing but yourself and we'll figure out the rest tomorrow. I can't just leave. I'm 7 months pregnant. You can't stay with someone who treats you like property either. After Emma hung up with promises to research flights, Rebecca sat in the darkening parking lot. Other cars came and went around her, families loading groceries, heading home to normal dinners and normal problems. Her phone buzzed with another text from Jonathan. If you're not home in 30 minutes, I'm calling the police to report you missing. The threat was subtle but unmistakable. He would paint her as unstable, irresponsible, a pregnant woman having a breakdown who needed to be brought home for her own safety. She started the car, but instead of heading home, she drove to the neighborhood where she and Jonathan had looked at houses before they bought their current mansion. Tree-lined streets with modest but well-maintained homes, the kind of place where neighbors knew each other's names and borrowed cups of sugar. She parked in front of a blue Craftsman house with a front yard full of vegetable gardens. Through the kitchen window, she could see a woman about 60 years old, gray hair pulled back in a ponytail, watering plants on the windowsill. The woman noticed her car and offered a friendly wave. Rebecca waved back, surprised by how good such a simple human connection felt. Her phone rang again. Jonathan, of course. Rebecca, this is your final warning. Come home now or you'll regret making me come find you. The threat was no longer subtle. Her hands started shaking again as she ended the call without answering. Through the craftsman's window, the older woman was still visible, now washing dishes and humming. Her kitchen looked warm and lived in. Nothing like Rebecca's pristine marble and stainless steel showplace that felt more like a museum than a home. The baby kicked hard, and Rebecca rubbed her belly gently. What do you think, little one? Should we knock on a stranger's door? As if in answer, the baby kicked again, and for the first time all day, Rebecca smiled. She was still sitting there gathering courage when headlights appeared in her rearview mirror. Expensive headlights, moving slowly down the quiet street, like a predator hunting its prey. Jonathan had found her. Margaret O'Brien set down her watering can and studied the pregnant woman sitting in the car outside her house. The young lady had been there for nearly 20 minutes now, engine running, clearly distressed about something. Margaret had raised 3 children and taught high school English for 30 years. She recognized emotional turmoil when she saw it. Margaret picked up her phone and checked her live stream. She'd been sharing her evening garden routine with her small but devoted following of gardening enthusiasts for the past 2 years. 43 people were currently watching her water the tomatoes and deadhead the roses. Well, friends, she said quietly to her phone camera, it looks like we might have someone who needs help tonight. The comments started flowing immediately. What's happening? Is someone in trouble? Help them if you can. Margaret approached the car slowly, her phone still recording discreetly. The woman inside looked to be in her early 30s, very pregnant and crying. Margaret tapped gently on the driver's side window. The pregnant woman startled, then rolled down the window with obvious reluctance. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to just sit here. I was driving and I just needed to stop somewhere safe for a minute. Honey, are you all right? Margaret's voice carried decades of maternal authority softened by genuine concern. Are you hurt? Do you need help? The simple question seemed to break something inside the young woman. Fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. My husband, he's having an affair. I found them together tonight, and I don't know what to do or where to go. Margaret's expression sharpened with understanding. Is he violent? Are you afraid of him? Not physically, not yet. The admission seemed to terrify the woman even as she said it. But I'm starting to think that might change. Margaret made a decision that would alter both their lives forever. I'm Margaret O'Brien. I live right here in this house. Why don't you come inside? I was just making some chamomile tea. I can't impose on a stranger. He's expecting me home, and if I don't show up soon, he'll be angry. Honey? What? Margaret's voice took on the firm but kind tone she'd perfected during 3 decades of teaching teenagers. You're 7 months pregnant, sitting in a stranger's driveway crying because you're afraid to go home to your own husband. That man should be worried about you, not angry at you. Through her phone screen, Margaret could see her live stream audience responding, "Invite her in. She needs help. Don't let her go back to him." The young woman looked toward Margaret's house. Warm light spilled from the windows onto the front porch. The garden was clearly tended with love and patience. Everything about the place radiated safety in a way her marble mansion never had. "Just for a few minutes," she whispered. Margaret helped her out of the car, noting how carefully the woman moved, how protectively she held her rounded belly. Inside, the house smelled like lavender and fresh bread. Family photos covered the mantel showing children and grandchildren. Margaret's laptop sat open on the kitchen counter, still streaming to her gardening audience. "I hope you don't mind," Margaret said, gesturing toward the computer. "I was sharing my evening routine with some online friends. They're probably wondering why I abandoned the cucumber beetles for a social call." The pregnant woman barely seemed to notice. She was too busy absorbing the normalcy around her. Dishes drying in the rack beside the sink, an orange tabby cat sleeping on a pile of newspapers. The comfortable chaos of a home that was actually lived in. Margaret made tea while the young woman sat at the kitchen table, her phone buzzing incessantly with incoming messages. "He keeps calling and texting," she said quietly. "You don't have to answer. He'll come looking for me if I don't respond soon. Then we'll deal with that when it happens." Margaret set down a steaming mug of chamomile tea. "What's your name, dear?" "Rebecca. Rebecca Hamilton." Margaret's eyebrows rose slightly. "Hamilton? As in Hamilton Development Group? I know that name from the news. That's my husband, Jonathan. He's been trying to buy properties in this neighborhood for months." "Ah, yes. He wants to tear down these homes and build luxury condominiums." Margaret's tone carried a hint of steel. "Over my dead body. This is a community, not a commodity to be bought and sold." They sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes, sipping tea. Rebecca felt her shoulders relax for the first time in months. "I found him with another woman tonight," she said quietly. "In our house, on our couch. She told me it's been going on for 6 months." Margaret's face hardened with protective fury. "And before tonight, was he controlling, manipulative?" Rebecca thought about Emma's words on the phone. "I thought it was normal marriage stuff. He makes all the money, so he makes all the decisions. He says I don't understand business or finances or really anything important." "But you worked before you got married?" "I had a good job in marketing. I was successful at it. But when we got married, Jonathan said it would be better if I focused on making a proper home for us." Rebecca's voice got smaller with each word. "He said no wife of his needed to work outside the home." Margaret nodded grimly. She'd heard variations of this story too many times before. "What about your family? Friends?" "My sister lives in Seattle. My parents died in a car accident 5 years ago." Rebecca paused, then continued with growing horror in her voice. "As for friends, I can't think of anyone I could call right now. They all drifted away over the years. Or were driven away. Jonathan never liked my friends. He said they didn't understand our lifestyle, that they were jealous of what we had. It was easier to just stop seeing them than deal with his criticism every time I came home from lunch with someone." Margaret's expression grew darker. On her laptop screen, the live stream audience was equally outraged. "Classic abuser tactics. Isolation is the first step. She needs to get away from him. We're witnessing domestic abuse." Rebecca's phone rang again. She glanced at the screen and went white. "It's him calling from the car. That means he's driving around the neighborhood looking for me." Margaret checked her live stream. Nearly 300 people were now watching, all of them invested in this real-life drama unfolding in her kitchen. Through the front window, they could see expensive headlights turning onto Margaret's quiet street. The lights moved slowly, methodically, like a predator hunting for prey. "That's his car," Rebecca whispered. shrinking back from the window. The black Mercedes stopped directly in front of Margaret's house. Margaret kept her voice calm despite the adrenaline flooding her system. Rebecca, I want you to listen to me very carefully. You are safe in this house. You don't have to go anywhere you don't want to go. And everything that happens next is being witnessed by 300 people who care about your welfare. The Mercedes engine shut off. Through the windshield, they could see Jonathan Hamilton sitting behind the wheel, his face a mask of controlled fury, even in the dim light. Rebecca's phone buzzed with a text message. I can see your car, Rebecca. Come out here right now. He knows I'm here, Rebecca said, her voice barely audible. Yes, he does, Margaret replied steadily. The question is, what are you going to do about it? For the first time in years, Rebecca Hamilton had to make a choice that was entirely her own, and 300 strangers on the internet were rooting for her to choose herself. Jonathan Hamilton emerged from his Mercedes like a man accustomed to commanding every room he entered. Even in the evening shadows, his expensive suit and perfectly styled hair marked him as someone important, someone powerful. But Margaret O'Brien had dealt with plenty of powerful men who used their authority to intimidate others. Is that your husband? She asked Rebecca, though she already knew the answer from the way the younger woman had shrunk back from the window. Yes, Rebecca's voice was barely a whisper. I should go out there. I should go to him before he gets really angry. No, Margaret's teacher voice cut through Rebecca's fear with absolute authority. You should do what feels safe to you, what feels right in your heart. Margaret moved to her laptop, adjusting the camera angle to capture the street view. Her live stream audience had grown to nearly 500 viewers, all watching this domestic drama unfold in real time. The comments were flowing too fast to read individually, but the overwhelming sentiment was clear. Don't let him take her. Jonathan walked up Margaret's front path with the measured stride of a man who expected compliance. He rang the doorbell once, twice, 3 times in rapid succession, each ring lasting longer and carrying more impatience. Margaret looked at Rebecca. You don't have to see him if you don't want to. He won't leave until I talk to him. He never just leaves. The doorbell gave way to sharp, demanding knocks that echoed through the small house. Rebecca, Jonathan's voice carried clearly through the door and into Margaret's live stream. I know you're in there. This is ridiculous. Come home right now. Margaret made her choice. She walked to the front door and opened it, but kept the screen doors securely latched between them. Can I help you? Jonathan's corporate charm snapped into place immediately, though his eyes remained cold and calculating. Good evening. I'm looking for my wife. That's her car in your driveway. She's having tea with me. I appreciate your kindness to a stranger, but I need her to come home. She's 7 months pregnant and not thinking clearly right now. Margaret's expression didn't change. She seems perfectly clear-minded to me. Ma'am, I appreciate your concern, but this is a private matter between my wife and me. Rebecca, he raised his voice. Stop this nonsense and come out here immediately. Through the screen door, Margaret could see the muscle jumping in his jaw despite his polite words. On her laptop screen, the viewer count had jumped to over 700. The comments were a steady stream of support and alarm. Don't open that door. He's scary even through the screen. Record everything. Call 911. Rebecca appeared behind Margaret, her face pale but showing more resolve than before. I'm here, Jonathan. His expression immediately softened into concerned husband mode. Honey, you're scaring me. What are you doing in this woman's house? You should be home where I can take care of you. Margaret isn't a stranger anymore. She's been kind to me. I'm sure she has, but you need to come home. We have things to discuss privately. We can discuss them here. Jonathan's mask slipped for just a moment, revealing the anger underneath. That's not happening, Rebecca. Get in the car. What if I don't want to? The question seemed to surprise everyone, including Rebecca herself. She'd never asked it before. Jonathan stepped closer to the screen door, his voice dropping to that familiar, dangerous tone. Then you'll learn why that's not an option for you. Margaret's hand moved toward her phone, but were ready to call 911. On the live stream, viewers were frantically typing warnings and encouragement. Are you threatening her? Margaret's voice cut through the tension like a blade. I'm having a private conversation with my wife. Your private conversation is taking place on my front porch, which makes it public, and it's being heard by about 700 people right now. Jonathan noticed the laptop for the first time. The camera clearly pointed toward the front door. His face changed, calculation replacing raw fury. Are you recording this conversation? Margaret didn't answer directly. I was live streaming my evening garden routine. You interrupted it by coming to my door and making threats. Turn off that camera immediately. No. The single word hung in the air between them. Jonathan wasn't accustomed to being told no, especially not by women. I said, turn off that camera. And I said no. Margaret's voice remained perfectly steady. This is my home, my computer, and my choice, Wang. Rebecca watched this exchange with growing amazement. Margaret wasn't afraid of Jonathan. She wasn't backing down or apologizing or trying to smooth things over. She was simply standing her ground. Rebecca, get in the car. We're leaving right now. What if I want to stay here tonight? Another question she'd never dared to ask. Jonathan's carefully maintained composure finally began to crack. You don't get to want things. You get to do what I tell you to do. Now stop this ridiculous performance and get in the car. The profanity and raised voice echoed clearly through Margaret's live stream. The comment section exploded. He just showed his true colors. Abuser confirmed. That poor woman. Someone call the police. This is terrifying to watch, Margaret spoke next, her voice deadly calm despite her racing heart. Sir, you need to leave my property immediately. Not without my wife. Your wife is an adult human being. She can make her own choices about where she wants to be. She's 7 months pregnant with my child. She's not thinking rationally because of hormones. She seems perfectly rational to me. You, on the other hand, are becoming increasingly unstable. Jonathan lunged forward and rattled the screen door handle violently. The sudden movement made Rebecca gasp and stumble backward. Margaret caught her arm to steady her. The live stream camera captured everything. Jonathan's contorted face pressed against the screen, his raised hand, Margaret protecting Rebecca, the terror in Rebecca's eyes. You interfering old bitch, Jonathan snarled. I'll buy this house and tear it down just to spite you. Rebecca, you have 10 seconds to get out here before I come in there and drag you out myself. Margaret's finger was already hovering over 911 on her phone. Sir, that's a direct threat of violence. You need to leave immediately or I'm calling the police. Go ahead and call them. I'll tell them my pregnant wife is having a mental breakdown and being held against her will by a crazy old woman. But even as he spoke, Jonathan could see the laptop screen showing hundreds of comments from witnesses. His threats and behavior were being documented in real time by an audience that was growing by the minute. Rebecca stepped closer to the door, her voice stronger than it had been all evening. I'm not being held against my will. I'm choosing to stay here because I feel safe here. Safe from what? From me? Jonathan's voice dripped with wounded innocence. Rebecca, I love you. I love our baby. You're having some kind of hormonal episode. I saw you with Madison. I saw you together on our couch. That was a mistake, a moment of weakness. We can work through this at home, privately, like adults. But Margaret was already dialing 911, speaking loudly enough for both Jonathan and her live stream audience to hear. I need police assistance at 147 Maple Street. There's a man on my property who's threatening me and refusing to leave. He's also threatening a pregnant woman who came to me for help. Jonathan's entire demeanor shifted as he heard the word police. Officer, this is Jonathan Hamilton of Hamilton Development Group. My wife is 7 months pregnant and having some kind of mental health crisis. She's locked herself in this woman's house and won't come home. I'm worried about her safety and the baby's health. He was already building his narrative for the authorities. Concerned husband, unstable pregnant wife, interfering busybody neighbor. Through the phone, Margaret could hear the 911 operator asking for more details. She glanced at her live stream. Over 1,000 people were now watching, and the comments showed they weren't buying Jonathan's performance. Margaret, and Rebecca said quietly, can I see what people are saying online? Margaret angled the laptop so Rebecca could read the flood of supportive messages. You're not crazy. Trust your instincts. He's a textbook abuser. Don't go with him. We believe you. You deserve so much better. Stay strong. For the first time in years, Rebecca felt truly seen and understood. These strangers knew exactly what she was experiencing in a way that no one in her actual life ever had. Police sirens wailed in the distance, growing steadily louder. Margaret's live stream viewer count had exploded to over 1,500 people, all watching in real time as Jonathan Hamilton's mask continued to slip. The comments were moving too fast to read, but the overwhelming message was clear. This was domestic abuse being broadcast live to the world. You can't hide behind strangers forever, Rebecca, Jonathan called through the screen door. Eventually, you'll have to come home, and when you do, we're going to have a very different conversation about boundaries and consequences. The threat was wrapped in civilized language, but every woman watching the stream recognized it for what it was. I'm calling the police, Margaret announced loudly, both for Jonathan's benefit and her online audience. Go ahead, Jonathan shot back with false confidence. I'll tell them my pregnant wife is having a breakdown and being held against her will by an unstable woman. The gaslighting was so smooth, so practiced, that Rebecca realized with horror that he'd done this before. Maybe not this exact scenario, but the technique of flipping victim and perpetrator, making his abuse look like protection. I'm not being held against my will, Rebecca said clearly, stepping closer to the door. She wanted the camera and any potential police officers to see her face, to hear her words directly. I'm choosing to stay here because this is the first place I've felt safe in months. Safe from what? From me? Jonathan's voice dripped with wounded innocence. Rebecca, sweetheart, I love you more than anything. I love our baby. You're having some kind of hormonal episode because of the pregnancy. More gaslighting. More attempts to make her doubt her own perceptions and reality. I saw you with Madison on our couch. That was nothing. A mistake. One moment of weakness that meant absolutely nothing. We can work through this at home, privately, like mature adults. Margaret finished dialing 911 and spoke loudly enough for everyone to hear. I need police assistance at 147 Maple Street. There's a man on my property who's been threatening me and refusing to leave. He's also threatening a pregnant woman who came to me for help. Jonathan's demeanor shifted instantly. Officer, this is Jonathan Hamilton of Hamilton Development Group. My wife is 7 months pregnant and having some kind of mental health crisis. She's barricaded herself in this woman's house and won't come home. I'm extremely concerned about her welfare and our unborn child's safety. He was spinning his story for the authorities before they even arrived. Concerned husband, unstable pregnant wife, interfering neighbor who didn't understand the situation. Through the phone, Margaret could hear the 911 operator whisper for more details. She glanced at her live stream screen. The viewer count now showed over 2,000 people, and they weren't buying Jonathan's performance for a second. Margaret, Rebecca said quietly, can I see what people are writing? Margaret angled her laptop so Rebecca could read the flood of supportive comments. You're not crazy, honey. Trust your gut feelings. He's a classic abuser. Don't go back with him. We all believe you. You deserve so much better than this. Stay strong, Mama. You're protecting your baby by staying away. For the first time in years, Rebecca felt truly seen and validated. These complete strangers understood exactly what she was experiencing in a way that no one in her real life ever had. Jonathan checked his expensive watch with growing impatience. Rebecca, I'm going to count to 10. Then I'm coming in there to get you, whether this woman likes it or not. The door is locked, Margaret said mildly. I'll break it down if I have to. My wife needs medical attention. That would be breaking and entering, on camera, with over 2,000 witnesses watching. Jonathan glanced at the laptop again, clearly calculating the cost to his public image versus his need to control Rebecca. His business reputation was everything to him. You can't hide behind strangers forever, he told Rebecca. Eventually, you'll have to come home to your real life. And when you do, we're going to have a very serious discussion about boundaries and consequences for this behavior. The threat was crystal clear, even though it was wrapped in polite language. Police sirens were getting closer now, their wailing echoing through the quiet neighborhood. Jonathan's carefully maintained facade finally cracked completely. You stupid, ungrateful bitch. You have no idea what you've just done. No idea what this is going to cost you. He turned toward his car as if to leave, then suddenly spun back around. In 3 quick strides, he was at the screen door again, slamming his open palm against it hard enough to make the entire frame shake violently. Margaret! Rebecca screamed as the older woman stumbled backward from the unexpected assault. The live stream camera captured everything in perfect detail. Jonathan's face contorted with rage, his raised hands striking the door, Margaret catching herself against the kitchen counter, Rebecca's genuine terror. And then Jonathan did something that would change everything forever. He pulled out his cell phone and made a call, right there on Margaret's front porch, his voice carrying clearly into the house and directly into the live stream audio. Madison, it's me. She's not coming home tonight, so we need to move forward. No, she's being difficult and irrational. Yes, I think it's definitely time for Plan B. The paperwork thing we discussed last week, do it first thing tomorrow morning. Make sure everything shows she's mentally unstable. Pregnancy hormones, irrational behavior, danger to herself and the baby. Rebecca's blood turned to ice as she listened. They'd been planning something. Whatever Plan B was, they'd been preparing for the possibility that she might resist or fight back. The police sirens were almost on top of them now. I know you can hear me, Rebecca, Jonathan called out after ending his call. You think you're so clever, but you have no idea how deep this goes. The bank accounts, the property deeds, the trust fund for the baby. Technically, it's all in my name. You have absolutely nothing. You are nothing without me. Each word was calculated to break her spirit completely. And when this baby is born, he continued with vicious satisfaction, I'll make sure everyone knows what an unfit mother you are. How you abandoned your family, had mental breakdowns, consorted with strangers. No court in the country will give you custody. Margaret's live stream audience was in complete uproar. Record everything. Save this video. This is evidence. He's admitting to financial abuse. He's planning to steal her baby. Someone screenshot everything. 2 police cars pulled up to the curb just as Jonathan finished his monologue. Red and blue lights painted the entire neighborhood in stark, flashing colors. Jonathan immediately straightened his tee, smoothed his hair, and transformed back into the concerned husband. By the time the officers climbed out of their vehicles, he was once again the picture of worried respectability. Officers, thank God you're here, he called out. My wife is 7 months pregnant and having some kind of mental breakdown. She's locked herself in this woman's house and refuses to come home. I'm extremely worried about her safety and our baby's health. But Officer Martinez, a kind-faced man in his 40s, had already noticed something that Jonathan hadn't considered. As he approached the front porch, he could clearly hear voices coming from the laptop speaker, hundreds of people commenting on what they just witnessed. Ma'am, Officer Martinez said to Margaret through the screen door, we received a call about a disturbance. Can you tell us exactly what's happening here? And for the first time all evening, Rebecca Hamilton realized she had something her husband didn't. Witnesses. Lots and lots of witnesses. Officer Martinez had the kind eyes of someone who'd seen too much human suffering and still cared deeply about helping people. He spoke quietly in Spanish to his partner, Officer Rodriguez, who immediately began taking detailed notes while Jonathan continued his performance as the concerned husband. Officer, I'm Margaret O'Brien, and this is my home, Margaret said through the screen door, her voice steady despite everything that had just happened. This young woman came to my door clearly distressed about something. Her husband followed her here and has been making increasingly violent threats. What kind of threats, ma'am? Officer Martinez asked, his attention focused entirely on Margaret rather than Jonathan's protests. Margaret glanced at her laptop screen, where nearly 3,000 viewers were now watching this unfold in real time. The comments were moving so fast they were just a blur of support and outrage. He threatened to break down my door. He called me vicious names. He physically struck my screen door. And he just finished making a phone call to someone about implementing something called Plan B to have this woman declared mentally unstable so he can take her baby away from her. Officer Martinez's expression sharpened with professional interest. Sir, is this true? Jonathan's laugh was perfectly calibrated to sound concerned but patient. Officer Martinez, my wife is 7 months pregnant. She's been experiencing severe mood swings and paranoid episodes. Today, she found some completely innocent business emails on my phone and misinterpreted them completely. She's been missing for hours. I've been worried sick about her safety. Ma'am, Officer Martinez addressed Rebecca directly. What's your name? Rebecca Hamilton. Her voice was stronger than she'd expected it to be. Are you here of your own free will? Yes, I am. Are you afraid to go home with your husband tonight? Rebecca looked at Jonathan through the screen door. He was watching her with those cold, calculating eyes that promised severe consequences for the wrong answer. Then, she looked at Margaret, who nodded encouragingly. Finally, she looked at the laptop screen full of strangers who believed her story and wanted her to be safe. Yes, she said clearly, I'm afraid of him. Jonathan's mask slipped for just a moment, revealing the fury underneath. She's having pregnancy-related paranoia, officer. Her doctor can confirm that she's been emotionally unstable for weeks. This is exactly the kind of irrational behavior I've been dealing with. What doctor would that be, sir? Officer Martinez asked. Dr. Elizabeth Parker at Women's Health Associates downtown. Officer Rodriguez wrote down the name carefully. We'll need to verify that information, sir. Of course, I have her direct number right here in my phone. While Jonathan fumbled for his phone, Margaret spoke up. Officer, I want you to know that I've been live streaming my evening garden routine. Everything that happened here tonight was recorded live, including his threats and that phone call he made about Plan B. Officer Martinez's eyebrows rose significantly. You have video evidence of tonight's events? Over 3,000 people witnessed this entire interaction as it happened. Jonathan's face went completely white. That's a violation of privacy. I didn't consent to being recorded. You were on a public street and then on my property, Margaret said calmly. You have no reasonable expectation of privacy. Officer Rodriguez approached the screen door. Ma'am, would you be willing to show us this recording? Margaret angled her laptop so both officers could see the screen clearly. The live stream was still active, with comments flowing continuously. Show them the threatening part. He admitted to financial abuse. Play back the Plan B phone call. We're all witnesses to this. Don't let him gaslight the police. This is absolutely ridiculous, Jonathan interrupted. My wife needs immediate medical attention, not this three-ring circus. Sir, please step back and let us do our job, Officer Martinez said firmly. Ms. Hamilton, do you feel like you need medical attention right now? Rebecca considered the question seriously. I should probably call my doctor. I've been having some cramping since all this stress started tonight. Jonathan immediately pounced on this admission. You see? She's endangering our baby with this irrational behavior. She needs to be in a hospital where medical professionals can monitor her condition. No, Rebecca said with growing strength in her voice. The stress started when I found my husband in bed with another woman in our home. Everything since then has been his reaction to being caught cheating. Officer Rodriguez was still studying Margaret's laptop screen with interest. Ma'am, can you replay the section where he was making that phone call? Margaret scrolled back through her live stream archive. The audio quality wasn't perfect, but Jonathan's voice came through clearly enough. Madison, it's me. Plan B. Make sure the paperwork shows she's mentally unstable. Both officers exchanged meaningful glances. Sir, who is Madison? Officer Martinez asked. Jonathan's jaw tightened visibly. She's a friend, someone who's been helping me deal with my wife's deteriorating mental condition. What kind of help has she been providing? Rebecca has been having episodes of paranoia and irrational behavior. Madison has some experience with mental health issues and has been advising me on how to handle the situation. The lies were getting sloppier now, and Rebecca could see that Officer Martinez wasn't buying any of it. Mrs. Hamilton, do you have somewhere safe you could stay tonight? The officer asked. She can stay here for as long as she needs, Margaret said immediately. She needs to come home with me, Jonathan insisted desperately. She needs her prenatal vitamins, her proper diet, her doctor-approved sleeping arrangements. This woman is a complete stranger. I have prenatal vitamins, Margaret said matter-of-factly, and a perfectly comfortable guest room. This is absolutely insane, Jonathan snapped, his composure finally cracking again. You're enabling a pregnant woman's mental breakdown. Sir, I need you to lower your voice right now, Officer Rodriguez warned. At that moment, Rebecca's phone started ringing. She glanced at the screen with surprise. It's Dr. Parker calling me. Answer it, Officer Martinez suggested. Put it on speakerphone so we can all hear. Rebecca's hands shook slightly as she accepted the call. Dr. Parker? Rebecca, honey, I just got the strangest phone call from your husband. He said you were having a serious mental health crisis and needed to be hospitalized immediately for the safety of your baby. I told him that was absolutely ridiculous, since you were just in my office yesterday and you were perfectly fine. Where are you right now? The question hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. Jonathan's face had gone completely ashen. I'm at a friend's house, Dr. Parker. I found a Jonathan with another woman tonight. Oh, sweetie, I'm so sorry that happened to you. Are you safe where you are? I think so. The police are here talking to us. Good. Do you need me to come check on you and the baby? That might be helpful, yes. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Give me the address. And Rebecca, you are absolutely not having a mental health crisis. You're having a completely normal reaction to discovering your husband's infidelity. Your husband lied to me about your condition. After Parker hung up, the silence on Margaret's front porch was absolutely deafening. Even the live stream comments seemed to have paused, as if 3,000 people were holding their breath, waiting to see what happened next. Officer Martinez turned to Jonathan with an expression that had grown considerably colder. Sir, it appears your wife's doctor disagrees with your assessment of her mental state. She doesn't know the full situation that's been developing. What full situation would that be? Jonathan's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. He'd been caught in multiple contradictory lies now, and he knew it. I think, Officer Rodriguez said carefully, we need to have a much longer conversation about what's really happening here tonight. Jonathan's phone suddenly buzzed with an incoming text message. He glanced at it and his face changed completely, shifting from frustration to something that looked almost like fear. I have to go, he said abruptly. Rebecca, we'll finish this conversation tomorrow when you're thinking more clearly. But Officer Martinez wasn't done with him yet. Sir, you're not free to leave just yet. We have multiple witnesses who say you made direct threats against these women. And that's when everything truly began to unravel for Jonathan Hamilton. Mr. Hamilton, you're not free to leave yet, Officer Martinez said firmly, positioning himself between Jonathan and his Mercedes. We have several witnesses claiming you made direct threats against these women. Jonathan checked his phone again, his agitation growing more obvious by the minute. This is harassment, officer. I haven't committed any actual crimes here tonight. Threatening to break down someone's door could be considered criminal threatening under state law, Officer Rodriguez pointed out while continuing to take notes. Margaret's live stream audience had grown to over 4,000 viewers now. The comments section had evolved into something unprecedented, a real-time support group offering legal advice and encouragement. Screenshot everything for evidence. Save this entire video. Call the domestic violence hotline. Financial abuse is real abuse. Document all of this. Parker arrived in a small silver Honda, moving quickly despite her 60-something frame. She'd been Rebecca's obstetrician for 3 years, one of the few people in Rebecca's life that Jonathan hadn't managed to alienate or drive away. Rebecca, honey. Dr. Parker embraced her gently through the screen door, her experienced hands automatically checking Rebecca's pulse and noting her color and breathing. How are you feeling right now? Any contractions or bleeding? Some cramping, but I think it's just from all the stress tonight. Let's do a quick check to make sure. Dr. Parker pulled a portable fetal Doppler from her medical bag. Margaret, may we use your kitchen table for a moment? Of course, dear. As Dr. Parker began setting up her equipment, Jonathan tried one final manipulation. You see, she needs proper medical supervision. She should be in a hospital where I can monitor her condition properly. Mr. Hamilton, Dr. Parker's voice carried the crisp authority of 3 decades in medicine. Your wife is 7 months pregnant, not terminally ill. She's perfectly capable of making her own medical decisions. The fetal Doppler came to life with the rapid, reassuring whoosh of the baby's heartbeat. Strong and steady and completely normal. Rebecca's face relaxed for the first time all evening as she heard her child's healthy rhythm. Baby sounds absolutely perfect, Dr. Parker announced with satisfaction. Heart rate is excellent. Rebecca, your blood pressure is somewhat elevated, but that's completely expected given what you've been through tonight. Jonathan's phone buzzed again with another message. This time he answered it, walking just a few steps away, but still clearly audible to everyone present, including Margaret's live stream audience. What do you mean that transfer was blocked? I specifically told you to process it tomorrow morning. No, she doesn't have access to those accounts anymore. How could she possibly know about it? Officer Rodriguez followed Jonathan, listening intently to every word. Rebecca met Margaret's eyes with growing concern. What transfer is he talking about? Margaret quickly pulled up her laptop, scrolling through the rapidly moving live stream comments. Her viewers had been incredibly busy during the past hour. Someone called his bank already. Reported suspicious financial activity. Joint accounts can't be moved without both signatures. The bank fraud hotline is 1-800. People are calling financial crimes units. I think, Margaret said slowly, your new online friends may have been making some very important phone calls on your behalf. Dr. Parker finished her quick examination of Rebecca. You and the baby are both fine, but I'm genuinely concerned about your stress levels if you go back to that environment. Do you have somewhere safe you can stay tonight? She can stay here for as long as she needs to, Margaret offered without hesitation. Jonathan returned from his phone call, his face flushed with anger and something that looked like panic. Rebecca, we're going home right now. This has gone on long enough. Sir, Officer Martinez intervened smoothly. Your wife has made it very clear that she doesn't want to go with you tonight. She's my wife. She's carrying my child. She's her own person, Dr. Parker said sharply, and she's my patient. I'm medically recommending that she stays somewhere calm and supportive tonight for the health of both her and the baby. This is essentially kidnapping. No, Officer Rodriguez corrected. This is a woman making her own informed choices about her safety. Jonathan's phone rang again. He looked at the caller identification and his face went completely ashen. Who's calling you, sir? Officer Martinez asked. My business partner, Jonathan admitted reluctantly. Answer it, Rodriguez suggested. Put it on speakerphone. Jonathan's hands were visibly shaking as he complied with the officer's request. A deep male voice filled the evening air, clearly audible to everyone present and to Margaret's live stream audience. Jonathan, what the hell did you do tonight? The bank called me about suspicious activity on the Hamilton Trust accounts. They said someone reported potential financial abuse and fraud. All transfers are frozen pending a full investigation. The silence that followed seemed to stretch on forever. Richard, I can explain everything. You better hope you can explain it to the authorities, because if those accounts were being manipulated without Rebecca's knowledge, that's criminal fraud. And if there's any truth to these domestic abuse allegations, you're off the Riverside Project immediately and permanently. What domestic abuse allegations? Check the internet, you idiot. There's a live stream with 4,000 people watching you threaten a pregnant woman. My own daughter sent me the link 20 minutes ago. Margaret's humble gardening live stream had gone completely viral. The viewer count on her screen now showed over 6,000 people, and it was climbing rapidly by the minute. Mr. Hamilton, Officer Martinez said carefully, I think you need to contact a lawyer immediately. Jonathan looked around wildly at all the faces staring at him. The police officers documenting his every word. Margaret with her laptop full of thousands of witnesses. Dr. Parker taking notes about Rebecca's condition. Rebecca herself no longer cowering, but standing straight and strong. This isn't over between us, he said finally, his voice carrying a threat that everyone present understood perfectly. Actually, but Niti's voice said from the street, I think it is. Everyone turned to see a woman in an expensive business suit walking up Margaret's driveway with the confident stride of someone accustomed to being in charge. She was about 40 years old, with short dark hair and sharp, intelligent eyes. Detective Sarah Williams, Domestic Violence Unit, she announced, showing her badge to the uniformed officers. We've been monitoring this situation through the live stream for the past hour. Mr. Hamilton, you're under arrest for criminal threatening and intimidation. On what evidence? Jonathan demanded. Detective Williams pulled out her smartphone. On the evidence of approximately 6,000 witnesses and a recorded confession to financial manipulation and conspiracy. As the handcuffs closed around Jonathan Hamilton's wrists, Rebecca felt something she hadn't experienced in years. Relief so profound and overwhelming that it made her knees weak. Margaret steadied her with one gentle hand while continuing to type on her laptop with the other. "What are you doing?" Rebecca asked. "Thanking everyone who helped us tonight," Margaret said simply, "and making absolutely sure this video is saved in multiple places where it can never be deleted." As Jonathan was loaded into the back of Detective Williams' unmarked car, a white BMW appeared at the end of Margaret Street. It slowed down as if the driver was trying to see what was happening, then quickly reversed direction and sped away into the night. Detective Williams took careful note of the license plate number. "Madison," Rebecca said quietly. "Not for long," Detective Williams replied. "We'll be having a conversation with her very soon." Inside Margaret's warm kitchen, Rebecca sat with a cup of chamomile tea while Detective Williams took her detailed statement. Dr. Parker remained close by, quietly monitoring both Rebecca and the baby with the protective efficiency of someone who'd spent decades caring for women in crisis. "Mrs. Hamilton, I need you to walk me through the timeline of your husband's controlling behavior," Detective Williams said gently. "Take as much time as you need. Start wherever feels comfortable." Rebecca realized with surprise that she'd never been asked to tell her story chronologically before. Every conversation with Jonathan had involved him interrupting, correcting, reframing, or dismissing her experiences before she could finish expressing them. "It started very slowly after we got married," she began. "Jonathan said I didn't need to work anymore, that he wanted to take care of me completely. At first it felt romantic, like he was protecting me." Detective Williams nodded with understanding. "Financial isolation is almost always the first step in this pattern. Then he started making comments about my friends. They were negative influences, or they didn't understand our lifestyle, or they were jealous of what we had. One by one, I stopped seeing them rather than deal with his constant criticism every time I came home." Margaret's live stream had evolved into something completely unprecedented. The comments section had transformed from voyeuristic entertainment into a genuine support community in real time. "This is exactly my story too. I finally left after 15 years. Document absolutely everything. You're not alone in this. The hardest part is realizing it's actually abuse. So proud of you for speaking up. When did you first feel genuinely afraid of him?" Detective Williams asked. Rebecca thought carefully before answering. "About 2 years ago, I wanted to visit my sister in Seattle for her birthday. Jonathan said no, that we had important social obligations here. When I tried to insist, he grabbed my wrist and squeezed it until I agreed to cancel the trip. I had bruises for a week." Dr. Parker's expression darkened considerably. "Rebecca, did he ever hurt you physically during this pregnancy?" "Not directly, but he controlled absolutely everything about my medical care, what I ate, what vitamins I took, which doctor I was allowed to see. He said he was protecting the baby, but it felt like he was treating me like some kind of incubator instead of a person." "What happened today when you found him with the other woman?" Rebecca's voice grew stronger and clearer as she continued. "Madison acted like she belonged in my house, like I was the intruder in my own home. And Jonathan wasn't apologetic at all. He was angry that I'd interrupted them, angry that I'd come home early." Detective Williams took detailed notes on everything. "That phone call he made about Plan B while we were all listening, do you have any idea what he meant by that?" "Not specifically, but—" Rebecca paused, remembering something important. "Last week he brought me some legal papers to sign. He said they were just updates to the baby's trust fund, but I was feeling really sick that day and didn't read them as carefully as I should have." "Do you have copies of those documents?" "Jonathan keeps all our important papers in his office safe. I've never been allowed to have access to any of our financial or legal documents." Margaret looked up from her laptop where she'd been reading the continuing flood of comments. The bank freeze that his business partner mentioned might have stopped whatever he was planning to do. Detective Williams nodded grimly. "We'll be conducting a full investigation into his financial activities as part of the domestic abuse case. Hamilton, are you prepared to file for a restraining order against your husband?" The question hung in the air with enormous weight. Filing a restraining order would make everything official, permanent, public. There would be no going back to the illusion of a normal marriage. Yes, Rebecca said with firm conviction. I need to protect myself and my baby from whatever he was planning. Dr. Parker squeezed Rebecca's hand supportively. I'll provide complete medical documentation of your stress levels and the potential harm to your pregnancy from continued emotional abuse. Margaret's phone started ringing. It's my daughter calling from Portland, she explained, answering quickly. Mom, are you okay? I'm watching your live stream and this is absolutely terrifying. Is that poor woman safe now? She's safe, honey. We're all taking very good care of her. Mom, you need to know that this story is everywhere now. The hashtag Save Rebecca is trending on social media. News stations have been calling the house all evening. Margaret looked at Rebecca with genuine concern. Honey, your story has gone completely viral. Are you comfortable with that level of public attention? Rebecca considered this carefully. For years, Jonathan had controlled every aspect of her public image, telling people she was fragile, unstable, unable to handle the real world. Now thousands of people had witnessed the actual truth with their own eyes. I think I'm okay with it, she said finally. Maybe other women will see what happened and realize they're not alone. Maybe it will help someone else get out before it gets worse. Detective Williams's phone buzzed with an urgent message. She checked it and frowned deeply. Mrs. Hamilton, we have a significant problem. Your husband has posted bail already. He's being released tonight. The warmth seemed to drain completely out of Margaret's cozy kitchen. How is that even possible? Margaret asked with disbelief. He has very expensive lawyers and no prior arrest record, but there are strict conditions on his release. He's not allowed to contact Rebecca in any way, and he can't come within 500 feet of her. What about the house? Rebecca asked with growing anxiety. All my clothes and personal belongings are there. We'll arrange for a police escort so you can collect your essential items safely, but you'll definitely need somewhere else to stay for the foreseeable future. She can stay here for as long as necessary, Margaret said immediately and without hesitation. Rebecca looked at this remarkable woman who had been a complete stranger just 6 hours ago and had somehow become her lifeline to safety and sanity. Margaret, I can't impose on you like that. You're not imposing on anyone. You're accepting help when you need it. There's an important difference between those two things. Dr. Parker checked her watch. I should head home, but I want to see you in my office tomorrow for a complete checkup. The stress and trauma of the last several hours could potentially affect the baby, and I want to monitor both of you closely. Detective Williams handed Rebecca her business card. Call me immediately if he tries to contact you in any way whatsoever. No exceptions, no matter how minor it seems. We'll also need to meet again tomorrow to go over your financial situation in detail. After the detective and doctor finally left, Margaret closed her laptop, ending the live stream that had fundamentally changed both their lives forever. 47,000 viewers at the peak, she reported quietly, and literally hundreds of women sharing their own stories in the comments. Rebecca stared at the now dark screen, trying to process everything that had happened. I can't believe this is actually my life now. It's not your life, Margaret corrected her gently but firmly. This is your beginning. Rebecca's phone, which had been mercifully quiet for the past hour, suddenly buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. This isn't over between us. You'll regret embarrassing me like this. Even though the message came from a number she didn't recognize, Rebecca knew immediately that it was from Jonathan. Margaret saw the change in Rebecca's expression. What is it, honey? Rebecca showed her the threatening text message. Margaret immediately took a screenshot and forwarded it to Detective Williams. He just violated the conditions of his restraining order. They can arrest him again. Rebecca's phone buzzed with another message. Check the news tomorrow morning. See what your little performance tonight is going to cost you. But for the first time in years, Rebecca Hamilton wasn't afraid of Jonathan's threats anymore. She had something now that she'd never had before. Witnesses, evidence, and people who believed her story. Margaret turned on her small kitchen television while Rebecca stared at her phone with a mixture of dread and growing determination. The local news was already running a breaking story with the banner headline, Millionaire developer arrested in domestic abuse case. Live footage goes viral. The anchor's professionally concerned voice filled Margaret's living room. Tonight, a disturbing domestic dispute was broadcast live to thousands of viewers when pregnant Rebecca Hamilton sought refuge at a neighbor's home after discovering her husband's extramarital affair. Rebecca's face appeared on the screen, a screenshot from Margaret's live stream showing her looking scared and vulnerable in the kitchen doorway. Then a photo of Jonathan in handcuffs, followed by aerial footage of their beautiful house that now looked more like a prison than a home. Hamilton Development Group, responsible for several major downtown construction projects, has not responded to our request for comment. However, sources tell us that several business partners are already distancing themselves from Jonathan Hamilton following tonight's events. Rebecca's phone had been exploding with notifications for the past hour. Friend requests from strangers, messages from reporters, calls from numbers she didn't recognize, and dozens of supportive emails from women who'd watched the live stream. "I need to turn this off for now," she said, powering down the phone completely. Margaret muted the television but continued watching. The story clearly had staying power. It was the perfect combination of wealth, domestic violence, viral video, and a pregnant victim that news stations absolutely love to cover. "Rebecca," Margaret said carefully, "you need to understand something important. This level of public attention is going to fundamentally change your life in ways we can't predict yet." "What do you mean exactly?" "You're not going to be able to hide anymore or be hidden by anyone else. For better and for worse, you're now a public figure whether you wanted to be or not." The reality hit Rebecca like a cold wave. "Oh God, what have I actually done?" "You've told the truth about what was happening to you. That's never wrong, even when it makes life more complicated." Detective Williams called Margaret's landline within minutes. "Is Rebecca still with you? Good. Don't let her answer her personal phone or the front door tonight. We've had 3 different reporters show up at the police station asking for exclusive interviews, and someone has already leaked her cell phone number online." "Is she in any physical danger?" "We don't think so, but Jonathan was released an hour ago, and we know he's extremely angry about the public humiliation. His lawyer called the station demanding that we somehow remove the viral video from the internet." Margaret almost laughed despite everything. "That's not exactly how the internet works." "Exactly what I told them. But Rebecca needs to be prepared for this situation to get much bigger before it starts to get smaller." After Detective Williams hung up, Rebecca sat quietly in Margaret's cozy living room, feeling completely overwhelmed by the magnitude of what had happened. 12 hours ago, she'd been living what she thought was her real life. Now the truth was splattered across the internet for millions of people to see and judge. "Margaret, can I ask you something personal?" "Of course, honey. Why did you decide to help me tonight?" "You didn't know anything about me. I could have been anyone. Could have been lying about everything." Margaret set down her tea and considered the question seriously. 25 years ago, I was married to a man who controlled every single aspect of my life. He wasn't as wealthy as your husband, but he was just as manipulative and cruel in his own way. I spent 15 years walking on eggshells, making excuses for his behavior, believing that I deserved exactly the treatment I was receiving. Rebecca stared at her in shock. "You were in an abusive marriage too?" "To my children's father, the man who convinced me that I was too stupid to handle money, too emotional to make important decisions, too worthless as a person to deserve anything better." Margaret's voice was matter-of-fact, but Rebecca could hear decades of old pain underneath the calm words. "He never hit me with his fists, so I convinced myself it wasn't really abuse." "What finally made you realize the truth?" "My daughter Sarah came home from college and told me she would never bring friends to our house because she was too ashamed of how he treated me in front of other people. That's when I finally understood what I was teaching her about love and relationships." "Was it terrifying to leave him?" "Absolutely terrifying. I had no money of my own, no job skills after 15 years of being told I was completely incompetent. But I had 3 children who needed to see that women don't have to accept cruelty disguised as love." Rebecca absorbed this revelation. Margaret wasn't just a kind neighbor who'd offered help to a stranger. She was a fellow survivor who'd recognized another woman in mortal danger. "Where is your ex-husband now?" "Remarried to a woman 20 years younger than him. Still controlling and manipulative, But that's not my problem anymore. Margaret smiled with genuine peace. I've been free for 25 years now. They've been the absolute best years of my entire life. Rebecca's laptop chimed with an email notification. Without thinking, she opened her email program and immediately gasped. The subject line read simply, "Thank you for saving my life tonight." The message was from a woman named Jennifer in Ohio. "I've been married to my abuser for 12 years. Watching your story unfold tonight made me realize that I'm not crazy, I'm not alone, and I don't have to stay in this situation. I'm leaving him tomorrow morning. Thank you for being brave enough to tell the truth when it mattered most." More emails poured in as Rebecca watched. Dozens, then hundreds of them. Women sharing their own stories, expressing their gratitude, describing their plans to escape their own dangerous situations. Rebecca read email after email, tears streaming down her face as she realized the true impact of what had happened tonight. "I never knew," she whispered. "I never knew there were so many of us suffering in silence." Margaret looked over her shoulder at the flood of supportive messages. "That's exactly why your story matters so much. That's why it was worth taking the risk." A soft knock at the front door made them both freeze momentarily. Margaret checked the window carefully before relaxing. "It's Dr. Parker again." The doctor entered carrying a small overnight bag. "I brought you some essential things," she told Rebecca kindly. "Prenatal vitamins, some comfortable clothes that should fit you, and some snacks that are particularly good for pregnancy-related nausea." "You're so incredibly kind to think of all that." "Rebecca, I need to tell you something important, both as your doctor and as someone who's seen far too many women in situations exactly like yours." Dr. Parker's voice carried the weight of professional experience. "What happened here tonight very likely saved both your life and your baby's life." "What do you mean by that?" "The pattern of escalation we witnessed tonight, the financial control, the systematic isolation, the public humiliation when you tried to resist his authority, that kind of behavior almost always leads to physical violence eventually, especially during pregnancy when women are at their most vulnerable." Rebecca's hand moved instinctively to protect her rounded belly. "Do you really think he would have hurt the baby?" "I think he would have hurt you, and your baby would have suffered terribly as a result. Men who abuse pregnant women often target the pregnancy itself as a way to maintain complete control." The words hit Rebecca like ice water. She thought about Jonathan's increasing control over every aspect of her medical care, his insistence on being present for every single appointment, his anger whenever she wanted to make her own decisions about the birth plan. "He was definitely planning something terrible," she said slowly. "Those papers he wanted me to sign. That phone call about making me look mentally unstable to the authorities. Postpartum depression is very real," Dr. Parker said grimly, "but it's also become a convenient excuse for abusive men to have their wives involuntarily committed and gain complete custody of their children." Margaret's face hardened with protective fury. He was actually planning to have her institutionalized? It's unfortunately much more common than most people realize. New mothers are vulnerable, sleep-deprived, dealing with massive hormonal changes. It's relatively easy for manipulative men to gaslight them into believing they're genuinely unstable. Rebecca felt physically sick imagining it. So the baby would have been born into that nightmare, would have grown up thinking that kind of treatment was completely normal. "But that's not going to happen now," Margaret said with fierce conviction, "because you were brave enough to run when you still could." As if summoned by their conversation, Rebecca's phone buzzed with a text from yet another unknown number. "You have absolutely no idea what you've started. This is far from over." But for the first time in years, Rebecca Hamilton wasn't afraid of her husband's threats anymore. Rebecca woke the next morning in Margaret's guest room to bright sunlight streaming through unfamiliar white curtains. For a disorienting moment, she couldn't remember where she was. Then everything came flooding back. Jonathan, Madison, the confrontation, the live stream that had changed absolutely everything. The baby kicked vigorously against her ribs, as if celebrating this new day of freedom. Rebecca placed both hands on her rounded belly and spoke softly to her unborn child. "Good morning, little one. We're safe now. We're really, truly safe." Downstairs, she found Margaret already awake and bustling around the kitchen, making breakfast while fielding a steady stream of phone calls. No, she's not available for interviews at this time. I understand you have a deadline, but her welfare comes first. Yes, I'll pass along your message if she's interested. Margaret hung up and turned to Rebecca with a weary but genuine smile. Reporters. They've been calling us since 6 in the morning. Margaret, I'm so sorry I brought all this chaos into your peaceful life. Honey, this chaos was already destroying your life. We just brought it out into the light where it can finally be dealt with properly. Detective Williams arrived as they were finishing breakfast, carrying a thick manila folder and looking like she hadn't slept much either. Rebecca, we need to talk about some serious developments. We've uncovered several things about your husband's business dealings that are extremely concerning. She spread documents across Margaret's kitchen table, bank statements, property transfer forms, legal filings, all bearing signatures that looked like Rebecca's handwriting. It appears that Jonathan has been systematically moving assets out of your joint accounts and into shell companies that he controls exclusively. The investment accounts, the property deeds, even the trust fund he claimed to set up for the baby. Technically, you own almost nothing anymore. Rebecca stared at the papers, the numbers swimming before her eyes as the magnitude of the theft became clear. How is any of this legal? It's not legal at all. He's been forging your signature on multiple documents over several months. That constitutes fraud and financial abuse. Detective Williams pointed to a series of property transfer forms. These documents were supposedly signed by you last month. Do you remember signing anything like this? No, absolutely not. I never signed any of these papers. Our handwriting analysis experts have confirmed that these are forgeries. He's been stealing from you systematically and very deliberately. Margaret studied the documents with the sharp analytical eye of a retired teacher. This level of financial manipulation is incredibly sophisticated. He must have been planning this scheme for many months. Actually, it goes back much further than that, Detective Williams said grimly. We found email exchanges going back to when Rebecca first got pregnant. Jonathan and Madison have been planning this entire scenario together. Rebecca's blood turned to ice as the implications sank in. What exactly do you mean by that? The pregnancy was supposed to be temporary in their plan. They were going to have you declared mentally incompetent after the birth, gain complete custody of the baby, and then have the marriage annulled on grounds of your supposed mental incapacity. The pure evil of it took Rebecca's breath away completely. They were planning to steal my baby and leave me with nothing. Worse than that, they were going to leave you with no money, no property, no child, and an official legal record of mental instability that would have made it virtually impossible for you to rebuild any kind of normal life. Margaret's face was white with protective fury. That's not just domestic abuse. That's an elaborate criminal conspiracy. Exactly right, which is why the district attorney's office is extremely interested in this case now. This isn't just domestic violence anymore. We're looking at fraud, conspiracy, attempted kidnapping, financial crimes, and probably several other charges. Rebecca felt simultaneously vindicated and absolutely terrified. What does all this mean for me going forward? It means you're not just a victim anymore. You're a key witness in a major criminal prosecution, and it means you are going to need serious legal protection for the foreseeable future. Dr. Parker arrived right on schedule for Rebecca's follow-up appointment. Margaret graciously offered her bedroom for privacy during the examination. As the doctor checked both Rebecca and the baby, she shared some important observations. Your blood pressure is significantly better today than it was last night. The baby's movements are strong and completely regular. Getting away from that toxic environment has already had measurable positive effects on your health. Dr. Parker, can I ask you something that's been bothering me? Did Jonathan ever contact you directly about my supposed mental state? The doctor's expression darkened considerably. He called my office several times over the past month asking very specific questions about pregnancy-related mental health issues. He wanted me to document mood swings, episodes of depression, anything that could potentially be used to question your psychological stability. Did you provide him with any of that documentation? Absolutely not. You've actually been one of my most mentally stable and well-adjusted patients throughout this entire pregnancy. I found his repeated calls deeply inappropriate and told him so in no uncertain terms. Relief flooded through Rebecca's entire body. So there's no legitimate medical evidence that I'm mentally unstable? None whatsoever. In fact, I've been carefully documenting that your stress symptoms and health issues were directly related to your home environment. Your complete medical records will strongly support your case, not undermine it. After Dr. Parker left, Rebecca found Margaret and Detective Williams deep in urgent conversation at the kitchen table. What's happening now? Detective Williams looked up with concern. We're discussing your immediate safety situation. Jonathan made bail last night, but Madison Brooks hasn't been arrested yet. We have reason to believe she might try to contact you directly. Why would she want to contact me? Because their entire elaborate plan has completely fallen apart, and she's facing serious criminal charges now. People in desperate situations like that sometimes try to negotiate with witnesses or make threats to discourage testimony. As if summoned by their conversation, Margaret's doorbell rang insistently. Through the front window, they could see a white BMW parked in the driveway. That's Madison, Rebecca said, her voice tight with anxiety. Detective Williams was already on her radio, calling for immediate backup. Nobody answers that door under any circumstances. But Madison didn't wait for anyone to respond. She walked boldly around to the back of the house and appeared at the kitchen window, tapping urgently on the glass with obvious desperation. She looked completely different from the confident woman who'd been lounging on Rebecca's couch just 24 hours earlier. Her hair was disheveled, her makeup smeared, her expensive yoga clothes wrinkled and stained. "Rebecca," she called through the window, "we need to talk right now. This is all a terrible misunderstanding." "Don't respond to her," Detective Williams warned firmly. But Madison continued shouting desperately, "Jonathan really loves you. He was going to leave me and come back to you. Everything we planned was just temporary." The lies were so blatant and contradictory that Rebecca almost laughed. Yesterday, this same woman had proudly announced 6 months of betrayal. "He's going to prison because of what you did." Madison's voice cracked with genuine panic. "His business empire is completely ruined. My entire life is destroyed." Margaret stepped toward the window. "Should I tell her that the police are already on their way?" "Let me handle this," Rebecca said quietly but firmly. She walked to the window where Madison could see her clearly. "Madison, you actively helped Jonathan plan to steal my baby and destroy my entire life. The police have documented evidence of your involvement. It's completely over. You don't understand what you've actually done. Jonathan takes care of everyone in his orbit. Without him providing for me, I have absolutely nothing." The desperation in Madison's voice was genuine, but Rebecca felt no sympathy whatsoever. This woman had willingly participated in a plot to take away her child. You should have considered those consequences before you helped him commit serious crimes. Police sirens wailed in the distance, growing steadily louder. Madison heard them too, and her facade of confidence crumbled completely. "Please," she begged through the glass, her voice breaking. "I'll testify against Jonathan. I'll tell the prosecutors that everything was his idea from the beginning. Just please don't let them arrest me too." Rebecca looked at this woman who had seemed so powerful and threatening yesterday and saw her clearly for the first time. Another victim of Jonathan's manipulation, perhaps, but one who had chosen to become a perpetrator rather than find a way to escape. "I'm sorry, Madison," Rebecca said with genuine sadness, "but I can't help you anymore." The police cars arrived just as Madison made a desperate run for her BMW. She didn't make it to the driver's door before the officers surrounded her. From Margaret's kitchen window, Rebecca watched the woman who had helped plan to destroy her life being handcuffed and placed in the back of a patrol car. Detective Williams ended a phone call and turned to Rebecca with the first genuine smile she'd seen from her. That was the district attorney's office. Jonathan's lawyers called this morning trying to negotiate a plea deal. Apparently, your husband is finally beginning to understand exactly how much legal trouble he's facing. What kind of deal are they proposing? Complete restitution of all stolen assets, full admission of guilt on all charges, and a significant prison sentence in exchange for avoiding a lengthy public trial. The district attorney is seriously considering it because it would give you much faster access to your money and property. Rebecca thought about this carefully. "What do you think I should do?" "That decision is entirely up to you and whatever lawyer you choose to represent your interests. But Rebecca, I want you to understand something important. You have all the power in this situation now. 6 months ago, Jonathan controlled every aspect of your life. Today, you control your own destiny completely. Margaret made fresh tea while Rebecca tried to process everything that had happened in the past 24 hours. From trapped and isolated wife, to viral internet sensation, to key witness in a major criminal case. What happens to me next, she asked. Next, Detective Williams said confidently, you get to decide exactly who you want to become. You are free to create whatever kind of life you choose for yourself and your baby. Rebecca's phone finally turned back on showed hundreds of new messages, but the one that immediately caught her attention was from her sister Emma in Seattle. Saw everything on the news. So incredibly proud of you for finding your courage. Come to Seattle whenever you're ready. We'll figure out everything else together. For the first time in years, Rebecca Hamilton could say yes to an invitation without having to ask anyone's permission. Margaret, she said thoughtfully, would you be willing to help me learn how to do live streaming myself? I think I want to tell my complete story in my own words. Other women need to know they're not alone in situations like this. Margaret smiled with genuine warmth. Honey, I think you're going to end up changing a lot of lives for the better. Outside Margaret's kitchen window, spring sunshine filled the vegetable garden with golden light and the promise of new growth. Rebecca placed her hand gently on her rounded belly and felt her baby's strong, steady kicks responding to her touch. Ready to start completely over, little one? She whispered to her unborn child. The baby kicked once more, firmly and decisively, as if answering with absolute certainty, yes. 3 months later, Rebecca gave birth to a healthy daughter she named Hope. She started a nonprofit organization to help other women escape domestic abuse, funded by the restitution money from Jonathan's conviction. Her weekly live streams reached thousands of women around the world. Jonathan Hamilton was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison. Madison Brooks received 3 years and was required to provide complete testimony about their conspiracy. Margaret O'Brien became Hope's honorary grandmother and Rebecca's business partner in their mission to help other women find their voices. Sometimes the most ordinary evening can become the moment when everything changes forever. Sometimes a stranger's kindness can save your life. Sometimes having the courage to tell the truth can transform not just your own future, but the futures of countless others. Rebecca Hamilton learned that freedom isn't just about escaping from someone who wants to control you. True freedom is about discovering who you were always meant to become. Rebecca's story didn't end that night, it began. Her weekly live streams now reach hundreds of thousands of women worldwide. Her nonprofit has helped over 3,000 women escape dangerous situations. And baby Hope? She's now 3 years old, growing up knowing that her mother fought for both their futures. Margaret still tends her garden, but now she also serves on the board of Rebecca's foundation. The woman who started with 43 gardening followers became part of a movement that's changing lives every single day. Jonathan served his full sentence. Madison was released after 2 years. Neither has attempted contact. If Rebecca's story resonates with you, if you know someone who might need to hear it, or if you believe that ordinary people can create extraordinary change, here's how you can help spread this message. Hit that like button to help this story reach women who might be living Rebecca's nightmare right now. Share it with someone who needs to know they're not alone. Leave a comment telling us what part of this story affected you most. And if you want to hear more true stories of courage, survival, and transformation, subscribe to our channel and ring that notification bell, because every story we tell could be the one that saves a life. Remember what Margaret taught us that night? Sometimes helping a stranger isn't just an act of kindness. Sometimes it's the most important thing you'll ever do. Until next time, keep your hearts open and your eyes watching for those who need help. You never know when you might be someone's Margaret. Thank you for listening. Thank you for caring. And thank you for being part of the solution.